Welcome back to everyone. I'm Olga, and this is our second episode on our quantum business conversations. Today, we're going to do a deep dive into what I believe is one of the most critical and most urgent aspects of quantum readiness. It's quantum cybersecurity. And I'm extremely delighted to be joined today by Anna Beata Kalisz Hedegaard, global leader of quantum cybersecurity industry, CEO and co-founder of Quantum Security and Defence Group. Anna works at the intersection of quantum technology, cybersecurity, AI, and business strategy, and helps organizations to understand and prepare for post-quantum cryptographic landscape. Anna, thank you so much for joining us today to unpack this critical issue.
Thank you for having me, Olga. It's a pleasure.
I know that we have some tech issues, but I think that we'll deal today with this episode.
No problem.
Yeah. So let's start with the fundamentals, because I think there is a genuine confusion in the terminology among C-suite and business leaders, like what this quantum security is about and what it means exactly to the business, right? And like from my perspective, when I hear quantum cybersecurity, I immediately think about like two things from the business perspective. It's about protection. So we're protecting against the quantum enabled threat. And it's about the transition in a way from vulnerable cryptographic systems into more quantum safe. And there is a lot of like buzzwords of post-quantum cryptography, quantum key distribution, and so on, which might sound a little bit confusing to the business leaders. So Anna, when we say quantum cybersecurity, what are we fundamentally talking about?
That's a big question to unpack. So, first of all, when we're talking about the cyber security, right, we are protecting data at rest and data in transit. And when we're talking now about quantum cybersecurity, we're referring to a potential threat of a quantum computer. And we are preparing the infrastructure for being resilient to it. So our classical cybersecurity is based on a very difficult problems, big numbers. That is very difficult for us humans. It's very difficult for classical computers, but it's very easy to do for quantum computers. But we're talking about quantum computers in the future, not current quantum computers. So we talk now about, when we talk quantum, we are talking about two big groups. One group is based on a software that would be post-quantum cryptography. The examples are here, post-quantum cryptographic protocols approved by NIST. Those are mathematical problems that suddenly are also difficult for quantum computers to solve. So if we base our cryptography on those, that should protect us also in the upcoming future where the machines might be in the hands of adversaries. But there is another group that actually refers to physical properties of that security aspect. So it's the situation where the hardware is added to our security infrastructure, and that hardware has quantum properties. And the most important quantum property here is the fact that you not only can generate truly random numbers with it, but on top of that, you can know if someone is eavesdropping on your communication, because quantum states will collapse, so to say, get distorted if someone is trying to oversee it. And that's an additional feature that's not existing in a quantum. And that, in a so-called device-independent version of quantum key distribution, for example, that would be a ultimate solution. But now, of course, there is lots of details to both. Currently, we would suggest using both. For common, we use PQC, the post-quantum, the software, it's easier to update. And then the quantum key distribution or hardware-based solutions are the second choice for very specific links at the moment when we're speaking.
Right. And Anna, to clarify a bit, could you please explain what is the difference between quantum cybersecurity and cybersecurity we get used to? If they're complementary or actually excluding one another for business from a business perspective?
Well, that's from a theoretical point of view, it's an easy question. From a business point of view, it's very difficult to migrate a whole cybersecurity infrastructure. That means that there's going to be always places that classical cybersecurity is good enough, maybe with small updates or integrating with other solutions, but it will not need much because the data it protects, it's, for example, data that are very short-lived, and it's good enough. So the quantum or post-quantum, it will be always layered. So from a business point of view, the question is also what type of data you have and also how long you have to protect it. So it becomes a risk management because business is about money. And if your business is not to sell cybersecurity solutions, then it's an additional cost that you probably want to avoid as much as possible. So you will be only updating systems or parts of the systems that are necessary to do that. And there is a speculative part, of course, when will come that quantum computer, but we know that the data can be already so-called harvested. That means that they can be started to be taken over and stored on super data centers, and then they can wait for the moment when the quantum computer will be available. So now if that data has to stay secret for longer than the wait time for a quantum computer, well, then it's a problem already now. And those places from a business point of view have to be updated. I wouldn't call it maybe that one excludes the other, but from a risk point of view, it's very wise to protect your data because there is already some legal frameworks that actually increase liability in case the data would be compromised.
That's excellent how you shaped it from the business perspective. Because if I'm a financial service firm or healthcare provider, right, and the data I'm protecting today needs to remain confidential for 10, 20, or even 50 years in some cases. So I have to act right now. And this is kind of not optional. It's kind of a fundamental risk management, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and you've touched about the data. So it's really interesting, like which types of business data are the most vulnerable to quantum-enabled attacks, because sometimes people assume that all data is equally at risk. So from the technical and strategic standpoint, Anna, what makes certain types of data more vulnerable to quantum attacks? And are there any specific business sectors that should be, treating it as a priority right now?
It's funny. I like that you squeeze this business part everywhere because it's one thing what we want to believe that is important, and the other thing is sometimes what is really important from a business point of view. So depending on the industry, depending on the business, there is going to be different data that would pose the highest risk for the successful continuation of that enterprise. So one thing is, of course, what's for the government, that would be securing government data, private data, of course, health data. That might be on the government level important. That's the government has to take care of the peace and well-being of the societies. But private sector might have different point of view on the data and securing our some of the information might be less important than, for example, making sure that your system can operate. So something that would steal the corporate secrets, something that would expose IP strategies, something that would expose or compromise, for example, payments, but not the payment information, but actually make the payments unable to continue, so the business cannot continue. It can be extremely high risk. And those gonna be the places that those businesses gonna be protecting the first, right? So every enterprise has to know what are the highest risk, what takes me out of the business. If compromising my payments takes me out of the business, then that's what I really have to protect. I hope that answers the question without too many going into details, but that's how one has to make the strategic decision about that. And of course, there's going to be data, like as I said, from a government point of view, or like in finances, right? When there is insurance or big banks have to protect it, just the history of transactions or things like that. Then that is their core business to protect that.
Right. Yeah, I would agree. That's about impact. And, according to some scenario-based estimates, like once quantum computers make the decryption of today's encrypted archive, right, practical, the potential global impact would be super severe because it can reach like billions of dollars annually. And this is what businesses should be aware of right now. So I know that you have already touched this question in the previous answer, but I want to tackle one of the most dangerous misconceptions in this space. Like, is it a risk is nearby or it is something far away, let's say 2035 problem? And just to discuss what's wrong with this assumption, because I hear constantly from the business questions like why we should invest right now in a quantum safe solution if cryptographically relevant quantum computers won't exist in another decade or so. Or another one like, let's see how it goes and we'll respond once it becomes real. So this way of thinking misunderstands the threat model, I believe, and the timeline required these organizational changes. So Anna, can we break down the timeline of the problem itself and like articulate why it's waiting until 2035 or 2040 actually is too late?
Yes, let me start with repeating what I mentioned, right? So there is this attack of harvesting data now and then decrypting it in the future. So that's one aspect. One aspect is that it's already happening now. We know that that's type of attacks are possible. Of course, at highest stake are the most important data, or the data that have all political influence, right, can be used against one state or the other. But additional is the timeline and how difficult it would be to transition. So when you're thinking, oh, I can do it when the computers will arrive, unfortunately, at the moment, we are not having that level of comfort when it comes to availability of all the solutions, and also understanding how to in an engineering way implement it. And also there is not enough workforce to do it. So one of the risks you're running into by waiting to the last minute is that you will have to pay lots of money for something that you might get started already now as part of uh, your risk assessment. So I believe like that this year now in front of us will be all about understanding your data inventory so that you know where you need what type of solutions, where you can wait, where the risk is highest, and you can't risk that you will not have someone that will implement it. So let's say that comes this magical date, there is quantum computer, and maybe it's not going to the market within years, right? But it is suddenly available for a lot of institutions and groups to have it. Okay, so suddenly your risk of attack is going exponentially up, and you're trying to hire someone to do it because you don't have anyone in your teams that will know anything about post-quantum cryptography or how to implement it or what to do. And there is no one on the market because everyone else is also trying to hire them. And you don't want to be in that situation. So there are things you can pragmatically do already now and prepare your cryptography. And I can bet that lots of systems are so outdated that protecting it from the quantum computer is probably the one thing that we are discussing it here. But updating your cryptography to available tools, also because of AI or other forms of attack, it's just simply a good idea. We used to treat, you see, cybersecurity as something that you do once and then you're done and you don't have to think about it that much. But if the technology is developing so fast, we also have to develop the way we protect our data and digital operations.
Right. Yeah, and from the business strategy perspective, this is more about the proactive risk management versus crisis response when this day comes. And sooner business realize that, right? That adversaries are collecting the data right now, the faster and better that they can prepare for it. And
Yeah, and it is this time, like you just reminded, maybe I didn't answer it fully, but the time it will take for a lot of enterprises is not a year. It's not 2. It might be 15 years. It might be that it's so complicated how their cryptographic systems are that they will never be able to migrate and update everything. So they really have to understand how they can stage that. So even that might take lots of time to actually develop a system that will fit their needs, that will, when the time comes, this is what we do, then we do this, then we do this on an organizational level. And this, I think it's still a big misconception that one can just put a software on and everything's going to be okay. At the moment, not. At the moment, we don't have such an easy update.
absolutely. And here comes my next question, because it's connected exactly to this one statement. Like, how does quantum change the way businesses should think, like actually the mindset, right, about their data, its lifetime, and security decisions?
Yeah, I think they just have to get more modern about it. I think not only quantum, but also AI is already uh, really making it easy to see how maybe inactive we've been about cybersecurity. Okay, and how carelessly we implemented AI into organizations without realizing how actually AI agents and all those models live within the organizations, how they pull the data from different places, make them available in another, let's say, department, and suddenly it's hard to navigate which data is used in the model, right? But you are responsible for its security, or which data you are not responsible, but you are using it anyway, and you might accidentally expose the data that you had no idea that you are using in a context to get better answers for your model. So we've been implementing AI, and so getting a hang of uh, what we're doing and being proactive, so that each time we bring new technology, that we are able to scan our systems again, understand where needs to be more security, where everything is good enough. um, that changes a lot, and I think that if I the thing is, again, from a business point of view, when you talk quantum computer, it's such a difficult piece of cake. So on one hand, it can offer this immense change, and we all waiting for that moment. But we are waiting for that moment when the capability is gonna be really offering breakthroughs. And I think until that moment really happens, it's hard to grasp the impact of it. So we can talk, we can dream, or we can try to dismiss it, but we are all operating in a space that we don't fully grasp. It's not like, and we had that with AI, and I think that's the only thing that helps us with maybe quantum implementation and how we can have discussion about quantum, is because we just been surprised by AI. AI has been around for decades.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone was talking about it. Everyone was waiting for a breakthrough. I think we still didn't have the biggest breakthrough with AI. I think we're gonna be still surprised. But we had the first one, and the element models. I think that in some way we did not predict how it will impact everyday life, how it will change how we live in such a short period of time. So we suddenly we all talk to AI every single day. We all rely on it. Everything around us is AI based. That was not a thing 5 years ago. It completely changed how we do business and operate. It elevates people. It reshuffles a bit of the tasks. So if now quantum will come, it will do the same. It will surprise us, and everything what we can do before to prepare our infrastructures, our business, the mindset, right? As you mentioned, the mindset is very important to, when the moment comes, you are not in denial. You're like, oh, okay, that's what I've been waiting for. I've been waiting for this, and we have a plan how we quickly implement change. That is one way of dealing with risk, right?
Absolutely. And, I like the question that helps to build this sense of, impact and disruption that could cause, right, by entering the quantum technologies. And businesses could ask themselves, like, what if our encrypted files and communications and databases for the last 5 years, like, were decrypted tomorrow and bring to the public, like, what damage it could be? And if there are, like, in the list of these answers would be some competitive advantage fully destroyed, or IP stolen, or some penalties from the regulator, customer data was breached, and then you might be in a trouble. You just don't know it yet. So that's a good kind of a check business, right?
Well, and
So,
also knowing how much it will cost, right? I mean, if the cost is to say sorry and pay for a very expensive lawsuit, but you can afford that, maybe that's what you will go for. I mean, I am no one, every business, but what I think it's extremely important is to be aware of that and have that listed. How do you deal with that when it comes?
right. And I think we have already established that the threat is real, right? And it's quite urgent to understand and to start preparing. So my next question will be like, how does this quantum cybersecurity strategy should look like from a business perspective? You've already touched that should be somehow some kind of phased, right? But just to understand for businesses, like how expensive it could be, or should they, refuse from their already existing solutions? Will it disrupt their business? And so on. So this type of question will definitely trigger some, reflection from the business perspective.
Yeah. So you start with simple steps, right? As you say, you don't want a disruption to your business. And that means that everything what you implement, you need to be thoughtful about it and then test it also not on a separate test bed, but operationally implement it. And you need to know which parts you will protect first. And that's where you start. And you should start immediately, because it sounds simple, like when I'm saying, like, just check where you have your cryptography. But what we discovered in 2025, that question is really difficult, and it is now a big group of researchers actually are working on it, how to make it more efficient. Because if we were to do it in old ways, this would take forever. It's so difficult. So there is also a lot of innovation going into that, in that simple question of what do I have? And that inventory is, as every business can get started, then you define which, we also talked about it, right? We define places that are the most important for the business. And every business, as I mentioned, government will have a different most important data. Hospital, or places that hold all our passport information, all those different institutions going to the banks, then to the private sector of the businesses, but there's also energy grid, right? Like the networks that protect critical infrastructure. All those will have some parts that are the most important to protect. And that's where you start. You start how to figure it out, and you make sure that you have someone on, easily available, preferably not on the other side of the world. That's what happened, with Corona. At least in Europe, we figured out that everything that we needed was really far away.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be in that type of situation. So have a plan. What is your supply chain? What would it take? Who you call when something happens like that, if you can't invest in it? And then you make sure that you have someone actually capable to help, to take on that type of project, also from a technical point of view. And then you start to procure, you check the solutions. I mean, with post-quantum cryptography, I feel like there is no excuse. The NIST approved the protocols. It's a perfect moment to just, go and get started and see for yourself how long it takes. Because it might occur that even the software updates will require hardware updates. Because, of course, there are some new companies that update their computers regularly and their servers, but a lot of institutions operate on a really old systems.
Right.
And some maybe are so old that, they are on a separate networks and they actually save because they are never got connected. And that's maybe good. So those maybe you should keep that way if you have to save money. But if you have really old systems and you might need a hardware update to be able to implement new solutions. And you need to know who will provide that to you. Maybe you have to just prepare at least your hardware for it. Then you go further. Then you just start to think about having competitive advantage, right? That's a next level. Like as you said, there is a data that is critical, but there is also a data that, let's say, if exposed, on my competitors will suddenly pull up their sleeves and, get to work on what I was working on. And that is also, that's the next step. Then you're protecting your competitive advantage. And then you're checking if using the technology, having that security or your provider, right? Because sometimes I think we are still framing it that it is everybody's problem, but it's not. It might be that you really will just buy a new update from some of your supplier, but
Right.
you need to work with that supplier and know where they are. So if you are relying on the software update from company of X name, right? Then better check that they actually gonna have that type of update that you need. Otherwise, you might have to change your supplier. And you need to know for you what you're going to be changing. So those are different questions. Some of the institutions, some of the businesses is going to be going on that process individually because lots of maybe data that they work off, especially like in a defense sector, might be of such a high classified level that you will not like to rely on external solutions. So you will be protecting it internally. But a lot of businesses will like to just have an update. But even then, you need to know if all your suppliers or sub-suppliers, right, if they're gonna be transitioning, what's their plan? Because if you are the only one that transition, but everyone else actually don't have a budget, then you need to know about it. Let's say I am very aware. I just don't want to spend money at the moment. I'm like, I see it's a problem. I understand this PQC thing. How about I just put a budget for it? I have whole strategy, but I'm just not investing at the moment in it. But when the time comes, I buy the best thing off the shelf, and that's it. But that's just you. But you are constantly communicating with the external world. And you need to know where are your most critical suppliers, because if they are not transitioning, they might be your entry point.
Yeah.
And such an easy thing, like if my most important sub-supplier is compromised, I might ruin my whole system by just a silly phishing email that their system is suddenly sending around. And I am allowing their traffic because my business relies on them. And this, I think, it's very underestimated still in business, how to deal with all of that.
And I think that you are approaching exactly to the moment when I wanted to ask, like, I'm a business owner, right? I'm a CEO. So I convinced this is this is threat, but what should I start from my perspective, let's say tomorrow, in order to make sure that I'm moving the right direction and I'm reducing actually this quantum related cyber risk without massive costs and like disruptions for now? Because I think the perspective of the costs and complexity for the business, right, is actually preventing the action. So for many organizations, Anna, today, what is the reasonable first steps so to start build this quantum cybersecurity and quantum resilience?
Might be just starting with education, right? Just making sure that your team knows what to do. I would love to say, come and join Quantum Security Defense. I mean, we have open webinars every single week. We talk exactly about what's going on, what are the available solutions. So if you have a technical team, you can join our organization. There are also other solutions, but one big part of it is knowing what's going on and being able to have enough of people in your network that you can call and ask questions. And that is what I'm building with Quantum Security Defense. We are building a place where we constantly learn from each other and exchange knowledge. And some businesses come as members exactly for that reason. At the moment, they are not yet fully convinced or fully engaged, but they are sticking around to just know, to know what's going on, and slowly convince people. I would say that having a small team, and it doesn't have to be a team that have even big hands on, but having people that would be quite high leadership person, that have someone in cybersecurity and someone, for example, from the risk management, right? That they meet regularly enough and just know where the field is going, if it's time to put their team on the education and upscaling, is it time to plan update of the hardware? This is very simple thing you can do tomorrow. You just build a little unit They don't have to be full-time on the beginning. They can just have it as a part of their engagement. But you're making sure that you have someone that you can call and ask them, like, okay, now is this news? Like, you tell me, is this critical, or is this, not critical? What do we do? You need to have that type of network internally or externally.
Absolutely. Yeah. Knowing the market and the key stakeholders on the market in order to connect properly, right? And start small steps right now to educate yourself, your teams. This is the kind of investment that we should actually do to be on time, right?
Yeah.
All right. Anna, let me summarize what I think the key takeaways from today's discussion, because it was fantastic. We've covered a lot of aspects and specifically for the business audience, but I would love to build kind of a summary of what we've discussed. So basically what to do in order to be quantum ready and ensure your cybersecurity strategy is reframe the timeline, understand that this is not a far away problem. This is actually what's happening right now. So then understand the harvest now and decrypt later concept. So you need to understand your data, prioritize it, and plan what you're going to do next. So, and actually start small and build your quantum resilience step by step in order to be ready finally. So, Anna, maybe some final words of advice from yourself to the business audience, Anna.
I don't know. I would love to say, come and join the discussion. I also want to learn from you. That's the thing about exchanging knowledge is not only one way. I would hope that a lot of business owners will engage so that the quantum community and also quantum cybersecurity community can understand how do they make decisions, what do they need, that their needs gonna be met. I would say, come and join the discussions. Don't wait. You don't have to commit to anything, but if you will share some knowledge about how to engage with you, then the solutions that are gonna be in the future available on the market will be matching your needs, and that would be perfect.
Yeah, love it, Anna, how you break this down in a very motivational but actionable way. That's really impressive. And for all who is watching, today we've explored the cybersecurity dimension for quantum business readiness, and Anna has provided a concrete steps how you can start closing that gap. And if you want to connect with Anna and to know more about quantum cybersecurity, I will leave contacts right under the video. But very happy for everybody watching, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much, Olga, for having me. It was great.
Thank you, Anna. See ya.
See ya.